This first set is dead even.
Unbelievable combination.
Wow.
Beautifully done.
What a great spot.
Hello and welcome to the 2025-2026 APTA Tour. We're live from the Hyde Park Golf and Country Club in Cincinnati, Ohio, bringing you the 2026 Midwesterns Grand Prix, with live streaming brought to you by the APTA membership and our tour presenting sponsor, Corian. Tournament support has also been provided by the following: Duncan, Greater Cincinnati Platform Tennis Association, Mercy Health, Roto-Rooter, Alta Fiber, Quintus Wealth Management, We Connect Health, Viking Athletics, High Grain Brewing, Total Platform, Plains Moving and Storage, True Point Wealth Council, River Hills Bank, Marymount Capital, Town Properties, Atlantic Sign Company, Stretch Lab, and Titan Trophies. I'm Dave Broderick, along with Russell Benkeim, bringing you the women's semifinal match between number one seeds Anna Zubori and Ellie Halbauer, taking on the number four seeds of Charlotte Sikora and Allison Morgan. Russell, welcome to the booth. How is everything going? And why don't you tell us who the players are here?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. Always a pleasure to be doing a little commentary with you. In the bottom left of our screen, we've got Anna Zubori. Bottom right of our screen, we've got Ellie Halbauer. In the top left of our screen, we've got Charlotte Sikora. And in the top right of our screen in the purple, we have Allison Morgan. Looking forward to a good match, Dave. I think we'll see a lot of firepower here, and see what Morgan and Sikora can do to kind of defend.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And just before I kind of elaborate on that, we just want to mention that Mike Yashimsky is going to be our chair umpire. But I definitely agree with you that it's going to be two different styles where I think Zubori and Halbauer are looking to play offensively. They're going to look to create their own offense, where the Morgan Sikora, I think for them to be successful, they're going to have to stick to their patient play and really wait for the opportunities to arise. And they're going to have to take advantage of it. Just again, to remind everyone, in the white coat on the bottom left is Ellie Halbauer from Cincinnati, Ohio. So we'll see if she has I'm sure she'll have the home crowd behind her, and her partner with the black jacket or blue coat is Anna Zubori from Old Westbury, New York. And again, up in the top left of the corner of your screen is Allison Morgan, and she is from Lake Bluff, Illinois, and her partner to the right of the screen, Charlotte Sikora from Chesterbrook, PA. So again, I think this, I think we're in for a good match, Russell, just because of the different styles of play that each team possesses. So it'll just be interesting as to, who's able to impose their will on the other team.
Yeah, Halbauer, Zubori have two of the best drives from the baseline, but Morgan is so good at the net with her volleys. I mean, she's so quiet with her hands and absorbs really well. So we'll see if she can handle the firepower coming at her today.
And it looks like the ladies are about to get underway.
Looks like so far it's been pretty routine. Well, not routine actually. Morgan Sikora 3-setter in the match before against O'Sullivan Saric. That's a good win. 6-1 in the third. Halbauer, Zubori defeated Hall and Jackson in their quarters 7-5, 6-0. So we shall see. We got the matching outfits again. The Cincinnati. Is that a Joe Burrow jersey from Zubori and Halbauer?
All right, they're trying to get the hometown crowd on their side.
That's a good way to do it.
Looks like both teams going over some last-minute strategies, and you would think that this late in the season, it would kind of be, pretty routine what the plan is, but Zubori and Halbauer are pretty, new team, newly formed. So, they might have a couple more things to think about and talk about. So, looks like Ellie Halbauer is going to take us out and start serving.
A great early blitz there from Sikora. She'll need a lot of that today. I think the more they hold the net today, I think that's going to be their best bet. There we see the dreaded forehand volley flip, Dave.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of that comes from moving the ball around, forcing the net team to be a little bit too much out of position. And, I always remind everyone that nobody practices volleying while they're moving. So you want to try to hit as many balls so that you're stationary if you do have to volley.
Yeah, absolutely. When they get pushed back, keeping that ball straight ahead, limit that movement.
And I will tell you, though, as we've seen the transition of the game going through the last couple of years, you do see when you're watching the live stream, you do see more forehand volleys happening than, traditionally we have. And I think a big part of that is just because of all the players and their tennis backgrounds. Not saying that it's more beneficial or it's the right thing to do. I just think that, it seems more natural for a lot of the newer players that are out there to, hit a forehand volley than to kind of just sit on your backhand volley.
Right, and I think, in crunch time, though, when they're on their back foot defending, that really is still to this day where we'll see more towards the backhand volley. But there's so much talent in today's game that we do see a lot more flipping of the paddle than we did, even 5 years ago. Great get there from Sikora.
That's some get.
And I do like the roller to the deuce side left hip, but when you're going that hard and that flat, sometimes it just sits up a little bit too much, and we saw there it turned into an offensive forehand for Halbauer off the screen.
Yeah, and I was just thinking the same thing that, same thing. I like that roller overhead into the forehand corner, or the deuce side of the court from Sikora, but I don't know if you want to give Halbauer a lot of opportunities to hit drives.
Right, another break point here for Morgan Sikora. We have
an interesting volley there.
Yeah, I don't know if we normally teach that one.
Yeah, that didn't look like one of Zubori's traditional volleys, but I'm sure she'll rebound from it and look to turn things around quickly.
No, I like the way Morgan Sikora started that one.
Yeah, that was a big game for them. All right, Russell, it looks like Charlotte Sikora is going to serve.
Great drive.
What
Wow.
hand? What touch?
What a shot there from Morgan. Yeah, what a combo there.
And you see the firepower. Halbauer and Zubori are returning, and they've hit 2 returns and ended up at the net. And Russell, I think one of the things that you pointed out earlier is Morgan and Sikora just have to kind of hang in there.
Yeah, I mean, when there's so much firepower coming at you, there's not much else you can do. I mean, I think in the first game and a half here, they've, other than that fault right there, of course, they've done a really great job of just staying really steady and, absorbing whatever comes back at them.
All right, but they do have a game point here to go up 2-love.
All right, 2-love, Morgan Sikora. Just a few too many errors so far from Halbauer, Zubori. See if they can clean it up a little this game, but great job from Morgan Sikora, just staying steady here at the beginning. This is exactly the start they'd need.
And I think, Russell, part of the game plan, if you're Morgan and Sikora, kind of has to be to just let Halbauer and Zubori hit a lot of balls, because the more balls you make them hit, the more mistakes you're going to get, no matter who you're playing. And, I think the last thing Morgan and Sikora want are going to be fast, quick points unless they're winning them.
Right. I think they got to go into a mindset of, for every single point, the only way they lose the point is if Zubori and Halbauer hit a winner.
Right.
And if it's not a winner, then they're just going to stay in the point.
The only problem with that, and I've said it, for a long time, is that it's a strategy, it's a game plan, but like when you miss a shot like that, it puts triple the amount of pressure on.
Right.
You hear Morgan and Sikora very confident and positive, encouraging each other. Let's win this point.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't love that overhead. Can't be going cross court there without getting it to a screen, especially on your back foot.
A little indecision there. Let's see if they can get out of it. Zubori and Halbauer.
A lot of founders start out with an idea.
Our sponsors, Dunkin'. It's Dunkin's world, and you're living in it. Introducing the $5 meal deal. 6 crispy hash browns, a wake-up wrap, and a medium hotter iced coffee. Bring your friend, your cousin, or just your fabulous self. $5 gets you fed and feeling good. Dunkin' has deals for everyone. Get the Dunkin' $5 meal deal. It's a Dunkin' thing.
Russell, you've talked me into it. I can go for a nice Dunkin' right about now.
You know what? I do love Dunkin'. That's,
I think that might be a stop tomorrow morning before the women's final at 9 a.m. I might have to make a Dunkin' run.
You might have to. Sounds good to me. All right, so 3 love here for Morgan Sikora. And again, they're playing great, really minimizing the errors and letting Halbauer, Zubori make all the errors. So let's see if Halbauer, Zubori can clean it up a bit here.
And I think something important, for Morgan and Sikora, like I said earlier on, is that for them, they have to try to, they can't lose points early on in the point. I think the longer the points go, the more it's going to favor Morgan and Sikora. I think if they let Zubori and Halbauer, win points quickly, I don't think that's going to be, the ingredients that Morgan and Sikora are going to want to use to make the cake, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And on the other side of it is, if you're Zubori and Halbauer, I don't know if you're really panicking right now, knowing that, most of the points that were lost, they're making mistakes. And, if they can just tighten that up a little bit, and, they're kind of right back in it.
Yeah, they're dictating the play right now. It's just, a little switch, clean up, and, we could be looking at a different scoreboard. Great screen drive there. I don't know if you want to give Zubori too many looks off a hard back screen.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a difference between hitting good shots, offensive shots, and creating opportunities for your opponent. And I think they've got to be careful that, on their overheads, they're not creating opportunities like here, where, great volleys. But how many times are you going to hit 3 great volleys in a row to win a point?
Yeah, that's not a position that you want to be in consistently.
Right, and it's a fine line. So, again, just to remind everyone out there in the purple top who just served is Allison Morgan, who is the co-director of rackets at the Birchwood Club in Highland Park, Illinois, and her partner Charlotte Sikora in the gray top on the left side of the screen is the owner of Racket Odyssey. And their opponents at the net, Anna Zubori with the orange Joe Burrow shirt, is a 2-time national champion. And her partner serving in the black Xenon shirt is Ellie Halbauer. She's the assistant director of racket sports at Kenwood Country Club in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Great drive right there from Sikora. Again, just, another cross-court overhead, not getting into a screen. It's just going to be trouble, especially to Sikora's forehand. That's one of her big weapons back there.
Even that one was a little, maybe too close for comfort. Tweener.
Number 1 of the match.
There you go.
Great point.
Russell, a wise man once told me it's all about the theater.
Was a very wise man. All right, 3 break points.
That tweener was very theatrical.
I've seen you hit a few of those, haven't I?
Couple. That's only because I couldn't get to the ball off the back screen.
Wow.
What an amazing get by Charlotte Sikora. Well, I don't know if that hit the snowboard, the metal.
Dave, we want to take a second and say thank you to Corient. Corient is the official wealth sponsor of the APTA's 2025-2026 season. Corient is a fee-only wealth manager who puts their clients at the center of everything they do. Learn more at corient.com. All right, Morgan Sikora, 4-1 here.
Russell, I just want to mention someone else that has got to watch some of those tweeners by me live. Blake Anderson, one of the chairman of the Nationals coming to New Jersey, March 6th, 7th, and 8th. Just wants us to remind everyone that sign-ups are open. The Nationals are right around the corner. Sign up to play. You got to be in it to win it.
Dave, you think you're going to sign up this year?
You know what? I don't know if this is the year I'm ready to make my comeback.
I think this is the year for your Team Nationals comeback.
Now, Team Nationals, that could be a little bit more, my pace. Maybe play a match, sit out 4, play another match, sit out 3. I think that could be
That
could be
does
my
sound right. That's your speed.
That's it. That's like my stride.
Let's go. Stay with it. Come on.
Want to give another shout out to a few more people tuning in. Our ladies over at the Orange Lawn Tennis Club. They were all tuning in, watching this match. So hello to all of them.
You. Me. Up.
And I'll tell you what, from the looks of the beginning of this, they're in for a good match here. Really good, well played shot there by Allison Morgan.
Great.
Russell, I also think, as we mentioned, Halbauer and Zubori are extremely talented off both sides, forehands, backhands, when they're on the baseline. And again, that's why I think it's just so important for Sikora and Morgan to really hit a lot of volleys, make a lot of volleys early on, just to maybe let some doubt creep into the heads of Halbauer and Zubori, because if they just start hitting drives and they're missing them, that could just be the train, on the track, and you're not full steam ahead. You're not going to stop it. That's an amazing volley there.
Right, and I was thinking a similar thing of, as talented as Halbauer and Zubori are, they still are a new team together. So, having such a seasoned team playing together for years, and Morgan, Sikora, a start like this doesn't completely surprise me, as they still are finding their groove together as a team, and it's a lot easier to clean things up earlier when you've been playing together for a few years versus I think this is their third tournament together. Great roller there into the nick, and we see Halbauer Zubori with a break back. What hands?
That's a good
Beautiful
drive.
backhand there.
I think that's right at over. Yeah. You got it. You got it. You got it. Time. You. No. I don't know. Just long. It was just long. Thank you. Just long. Sorry.
Got two great drives there again from Sikora. And again, you and I talk about it all the time, Dave. She's just driving that ball, trying to find a spot at her right hip, not trying to go around her. And, especially against a team that moves a lot at the net, looking to cut off volleys and poach. Those volleys right at them, right behind them are sometimes just the best.
Well, and again, it's a make and a miss game. So you kind of have to hit it at someone to give them an opportunity to either make it or miss it, especially as you get in higher and higher levels. There's no open court. There's no space to try to go to. All the men and women that play now are, They've got a lot of good information. They're knowledgeable of the game. Their court coverage and positioning is pretty flawless. So, there's not a lot of open court to play to.
One. Good, Sam. Yeah. It's spinning to me. So I should be.
Another great return. Just, again, a few too many quick points for Halbauer Zubori.
And you know what? You can't overlook the fact that you have Sikora creeping in a little bit.
Yep.
And she's putting added pressure on that first volley that even, you're going to force errors from great players like Anna Zubori. And Russell, if we take a look at some of these match stats by court director, something that just stands out right off the bat is, Morgan and Sikora have already broken serve, all 4 times that they've, they're 4 out of 7. Halbauer and Zubori, the 2 games they've won, have been on breaks of serve. So let's see if Halbauer and Zubori can keep this going and maybe break serve here to stay in the set.
Yeah, it's not too surprising to see a lot of breaks to serve. These girls are just absolutely ripping from the baseline. So, and again, hardest shot in paddles that first volley. So it's not too much of a surprise. But to not hold serve yet for four games, that is maybe a little surprising. Love that move.
That's a really good move. So did you see how much spin that overhead had on it, that it just like stuck to Morgan's paddle and it kind of floated wide?
Yeah, I love that speed of the overhead right through the middle. It's gets them thinking, do they block it? Do they let it go? And if they let it go, it starts dying. I think that's just a perfect speed of an overhead.
I think everybody would love to have tons of spin on the ball, but at the end of the day, the speed of the overhead is just as important as the spin.
Absolutely.
And if you can combine the two, the speed and the spin, you could do so much more. You could hit, again, soft, spinny balls, harder spinny balls, and they react differently off of the screens and off the deck.
Yeah, when you get people questioning whether they let it go or whether they have to take it off the deck, it's so difficult with the amount of spin that can be put on the ball these days, to control the ball off of your paddle with that much spin. It's very challenging.
Right. Allison Morgan serving to get it back to deuce. I'll tell you, on some of these rollers that they're going cross-court to Sikora's corner, I'd like her to let some of these go more into the screen to give her opportunity, because her blocking the ball, it's not really creating anything. I mean, you see a phenomenal hold there by Zubori where they thought she was going to maybe drop it, and then she just pushed it a little bit further back behind them.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, we've seen a few looks where she has let it come off the screen, and it's turned into, a forehand that sits up pretty well for her. So I would like to see her even
Like
even
that
on a
play
ball
there.
like that.
Like, I think once they hit it and everyone, Zubori and Halbauer, see you taking it off the deck, they know that you're fighting for your life just to get it back in
Right.
that corner. So I think if they at least they let more of them go to the screen, it gives them a little bit of disguise and it gives them a little bit of option. Like, that's a different ball because it's sitting up. It's a down to up overhead. And Russell, I think right there you saw that's a design play. Like, Zubori hit that slash overhead cross court again because the spin on it makes it unpredictable. So it's hard to really get a good swing at it. But she was doing that just to pull Sikora in to create movement, and then we saw Halbauer hit a little bit of a harder overhead off of that back screen. And again, there's a lot of ways to create space, and I think in this match, if you're Halbauer and Zubori, you're going to want to create that space moving back and forth, not side to side.
Absolutely. A little deep for that overhead there from Zubori. Would have loved to seen just a nice push straight ahead again.
Yeah, you're starting to see a little momentum swing here, and
yeah,
again,
we haven't.
like I said,
It hasn't been much of a change in their strategy, as we see an interesting serve right there. Maybe hit that one a little bit, but I don't think there's been much of a change here in strategy. Just a lot less errors and cleaning up their game.
well, and that's kind of what I said early on when it was even 3-love, where Zubori and Halbauer really aren't worried because they know they're kind of creating their own mistakes out there. So you're starting to see it change a little bit, and and again, you're starting to see where they're tightening it up. Morgan and Sikora are not getting as many free points. So that's kind of why they're starting to creep back into this set.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot more of that, Zubori, Halbauer creating that movement up and back. Even that last point, with a nice drop shot from Zubori, and then hit her with the overhead.
But that was a friendly.
That was a friendly tag. All right, let's see if Morgan Sikora can close out this set here.
And when Morgan and Sikora, Russell, are back on the baseline, and we saw from the last point, they're a little bit of a newer team. They will hit some forehand and backhand volleys. So, I like that drive as well. Morgan Sikora, I think every drive they hit should be down the middle between Halbauer and Zubori.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen a lot of flips of the paddle, and if you're seeing that as a baseliner, you got to be pretty happy.
30-15. Right
Great pressure there off that return.
Right now. Yeah.
Let's go. Come on. Right here, this one.
Great hands from Morgan. And here we have 2 set points here from Morgan Sikora.
Does she serve and stay back?
Right here, yes.
I'm saying yes. I'm saying no.
I'd be careful with that cross-court overhead to Halbauer's forehand.
Good. Me? You. Me? No,
Out.
come on. Let's go.
There it is, the first set, Morgan Sikora, 6-4.
All right, Russell, we'll be right back in just a moment after these messages right here on the APTA YouTube channel with live streaming by CSM Media and Streambox Labs with match statistics provided by Court Director.
A lot of founders start out with an idea, maybe in a garage, in a shared workspace, and really being a co-pilot along that whole journey from ideation to execution to maybe monetization one day is really the role we've decided to take in the marketplace. So I feel like we have really found a part of the market and offering that just really hasn't existed. It's this coaching, it's therapy, it's co-piloting on a journey that is unique.
Dunkin's $5 meal deal. A yummy wake-up wrap. A medium iced or hot coffee. And 6 crispy golden hash browns. Dunkin's $5 meal deal. A deal for everyone.
WeConnect serves a wide range of organizations, from employers and healthcare systems to government agencies and even justice systems, providing tailored solutions to meet the specific needs of each, whether it's helping individuals re-enter society or supporting healthcare workers facing burnout. WeConnect provides comprehensive, scalable support.
Welcome back to the APTA Tour. I'm Dave Broderick here with Russell Benheim at Hyde Park Golf and Country Club with this women's semifinal match between Ellie Halbauer and Anna Zubori, taking on Allison Morgan and Charlotte Sikora. And as we come right back, you see a behind-the-back shot from Zubori, Russell.
Yeah, what a shot. What a welcome back.
It's it. Welcome back. We just want to remind everyone out there that Morgan and Sikora took the first set 6-4. We have some match statistics brought to you by Court Director. So Russell, what did you see, without getting too far behind this set, what did you see a little bit in the first set here?
Hey, we see a really close set. Morgan Sikora, we're up 5-2. Halbauer Zubori got it back, and we see only one service game held from Halbauer Zubori. Morgan Sikora putting a lot of pressure on that server. We're seeing them rip the returns, coming in behind it. So not too much of a surprise seeing so many breaks, but really close first set.
Just to remind everyone, if you're just tuning in, on the top of your screen, on the right-hand side in the orange Joe Burrow jersey is Anna Zubori, and her partner in the black top with the white hat on the left in the deuce side of the court, Ellie Halbauer, and their opponents at the net, who just volleyed it with the green top on, hitting the overhead now, Charlotte Sikora, and in all black with the white hat on is Allison Morgan.
Love the way Morgan just stays so solid on that backhand volley, such little movement.
Let's go. Come on.
15-30.
And again, I think we talked about it earlier on that, in order for Morgan and Sikora to keep having success or have any success, I think a lot of it was going to rely on their volleying. And so far, they're doing a really good job of, hitting a lot of really good solid volleys.
15-40.
The previous point, that miss from Halbauer, that's not a bad look at all for her, but I think, Morgan Sikora are volleying so well that, it's just an added pressure to try to make that shot even better than it needs to be.
It's gonna drop.
Give me one now.
All right, another break point here for Morgan Sikora.
Come on. Let's go.
Great
Hey,
return.
Morgan Sikora, they lead 1-0. Second set. Morgan Sikora won the first set, 6-4.
And Russell, you know what? One thing I want to point out to everybody that's out there watching is, Morgan and Sikora aren't hitting a lot of balls like really far away from Halbauer and Zubori. They're just hitting them far enough that they have to reach, and they're not comfortable and they're not balanced when they're volleying. Like, you saw that shot by Allison Morgan there to win that point, and it wasn't hit super hard. It wasn't hit away from them. It made Zubori change direction and reach.
Right, and I think that's been a huge difference. How many times have we seen already Zubori and Halbauer flipping and reaching at the net versus, we see even right there, Charlotte Sikora and Allison Morgan are so steady and just looking for their backhand volley and not having to move very much. And, I think that's why they're able to control the net a little bit more on points like this.
Good. Come on. Very nice.
That's a great spot for the drive there.
Yeah, and I would just love to see Charlotte Sikora take that one step to her right and get her whole body behind the volley and
Exactly.
not just kind of reach for it.
Shake it off.
15-0.
You hit.
Great transition.
Russell, do you think the longer that Morgan and Sikora could stay out in front, the more pressure they're putting on Zubori and Halbauer?
Oh, absolutely. Especially as a newer team, they haven't been in a situation too often yet where they've been down and have to come back. And I think it's really important as Morgan and Sikora are in the lead, and especially in these early games of the second set, for them to, not all of a sudden change their strategy and play loose and go for shots they weren't going for. I think if anything, they have to tighten it up even more here, and just keep playing super steady, solid paddle.
Yeah, I say that all the time, that, when you're the team that wins the first set, like, you can't afford to make more mistakes because the other team has to make less. They can't afford to make the same number of mistakes because they just lost the set.
Exactly. Like even an error like that,
Right, that was an unnecessary shot to go for. Zubori was in the right position. She had great anticipation. She cut that volley off. You know what? Just throw the next ball up in the air
Exactly.
and restart the whole procedure all over again.
Great spot on that overhead, and that's one break point saved.
And again, you hear our chair umpire, Mike Yashimsky, doing a great job controlling the action, calling the score out there. And
Game, Halbauer, Zubori. We're tied 1-1, second set.
That's two shots that game from Sikora that, in that first set, we didn't see any mistakes like that. And that's where, we see it all the time. And as teams win that first set and they get looser, couple errors because they feel extra confident and feel like they can get away with going for it, when in reality they can't afford those types of mistakes to allow Halbauer and Zubori those free points to stay in this match.
right, especially on break points. Now, I didn't have a problem with her going for that drop shot. I thought the bigger issue was she just tried to do too much.
Yeah, she tried to make it too good.
Right, like if it wasn't a winner, at least drag Halbauer all the way up to the net and then maybe volley or hit the ball behind her. But, I don't mind the shot attempt. I just think the intent was maybe a little bit too fine of a line there.
Exactly. Great hands.
I'll tell you, Morgan and Sikora have done a really good job of handling the speed ups by Zubori and Halbauer.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, they are crushing those balls at them.
15-0.
Russell, and we were talking about it earlier on, but just to remind everyone that the team nationals for men will take place in New Jersey on March 28th and 29th, and team nationals for women will take place in Chicago April 11th and 12th. If you have not signed up, please do so now, as registration is open. Oh,
God.
what touch was that?
Beautiful angle there.
15-40.
Yeah, Team Nationals will always be a great memory. I think that was the first time I met you, Dave.
It was one of the luckiest days of your life.
Best day of my life, without a doubt.
That's it. You came to New Jersey with the. Did Sam spearhead that team for you guys from Baltimore, or was that?
Partially, and Duncan Miller and Jesse Carl, great Baltimore guys, great group of paddle players in Baltimore, and Sam Byram always does a fantastic job helping all of the paddle community there. But what a great event that was at Fiddler's Elbow that year.
Yeah, it's a fun event. I mean, again, you can end up where, you take a group of men or women that you play against every week, and now all of a sudden you're cheering for one another.
Yeah, doesn't get to happen very often. Back to deuce here. Another free point there. I didn't mind the look. I just, interesting execution. Great volley there. I actually wouldn't have minded Sikora letting that previous one go to Morgan and just allow her to lob it and get back set to the baseline.
See, that's like the third or fourth chicken wing volley that we've seen Sikora miss.
Dave, I want to take a second and thank another one of our sponsors, Alta Fiber. If you want internet that's fast, reliable, and affordable, the choice is easy. Make the switch to Alta Fiber and get up to 6 gig speeds and 99.99% reliability. Alta Fiber.
Russell, I just want to give I want to update some previous information. Time is ticking. Registration closes today for the Junior Nationals, February 28th in Summit, New Jersey, and for the Women's and Men's Nationals, March 6th, 7th, and 8th, also in Summit, New Jersey, being held at a Canoeborough Country Club. So registration closes today. So if you haven't done so, get out there and sign up.
Yeah, looking forward to Junior Nationals. Always fun to see those kids playing, and we'll be a sight over at Orange Lawn. I'll get to watch the kids, watch the future of our sport.
Russell, I understand that you and I are going to be doing some of the commentary for the Junior Nationals next week.
Always looking forward to that.
Always a fun day watching the kids run around and have fun.
Yeah. We can come back here.
2 break points here. See if Halbauer Zubori can get a little bit of a lead in the second set.
And again, I think some of these choices from Morgan and Sikora right now, they've got to be careful because, hitting those hard overheads into the back screen, like Halbauer and Zubori are now not only catching up to them, but they're hitting offensive attacking shots.
Right. Yeah, it's a little different as when they're off balance and getting them to chase it down where they can't attack it versus if they're already set at the baseline and now they're chasing them down. It's a lot more dangerous. I don't know how many times I want to see Ellie Halbauer running into the court with a forehand coming at me.
Right. That was a great volley there by Charlotte Sikora, getting it back behind Zubori.
Great hands from Morgan. Again, just so steady with that backhand volley.
You got it.
Come on. Great pace.
See, that's the overhead that I'm not a fan of it, and I can't say it any more bluntly. That when you're hitting the ball from one side of the court to the other side of the court to a player's forehand, like it's not a winning proposition. It's not a winning strategy. Again, if you're hitting a roller, you're keeping the ball lower. If you're getting it into the side screen, that's a different story. If you're a lefty, that's a different story. But, we've seen it numerous times in this match where that overhead has cost the team that hit it, cost them the point.
Exactly.
Got it. Here's what we need. You got it.
Wow,
What a get by Zubori. Unbelievable.
Incredible get. Great drives by Sikora, but wow, what a get from Zubori there.
Nice serve. Yeah, I thought it was.
30 low.
Just a little confusion up there.
And out. 40 low.
I'm gonna talk right away. We don't lose. All right, here we go.
I think in her mind, Charlotte Sikora had big dreams on that shot.
Don't we all have big dreams, Dave?
Team Halbauer Zubori.
Some bigger than others.
Game to 2, second set. Morgan Sikora won the first set, 6-4.
All right, we want to take another second here and thank We Connect Health, connecting with people working toward mental health recovery and wellness. We Connect Health delivers flexible solutions that support individuals, companies, and health systems through accessible technology, real human connection, and proven engagement strategies. Thank you, We Connect Health.
Russell, we should always, very appreciative and thank all of our sponsors, national, local, for helping put on, great events week in and week out here on the APTA Tour.
We wouldn't be able to really do any of this without our sponsors, whether it's the stream or even just run these tournaments. So we're always appreciative for everybody willing to help sponsor these tournaments.
15 low.
All right, Russell, let's see how Morgan and Sikora handle this. This is the kind of, they're still up in the match, but they're down in this set. So let's see how they handle this.
15 all.
Is that the advice you'd want to hear from your partner?
Yeah.
If you see it that far out, just duck.
I think that's beautiful advice.
Cover your face and duck.
Do you tell the members at Fiddler's Elbow the same thing?
No, I tell them to go stand on the side of the court and protect yourself.
All right, 15:30 here, 2-3. I think we need to see a long point. Even that last point, we saw just a hard overhead from Sikora to the back screen and just allowing Halbauer to run forward and rip a forehand, which, again, I don't know how many forehands Sikora and Morgan really want to see from Halbauer. I'd be staying away. Great move there from Zubori, and 2 break points here.
Yeah, and I think if you're Morgan and Sikora, I still think, you have to play aggressive, but not force it. But, I still think that they've got to still keep the pressure on Zubori and Halbauer. Like, as much as they're, in the lead of the match, but they're down in the set, I feel like Halbauer and Zubori they're applying all the pressure. They're controlling the pressure.
Right.
2, second set.
Tweener number 2. Great move.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, another loose overhead there.
Only because, I mean, you had sort of Zubori over there running around, spinning around, and just let her hit another ball. Let her get herself out of trouble.
Yeah, there was no need to take the pressure off of her voluntarily. Now we're seeing, you know, three pretty quick errors in a row from Sikora. You know, early on we saw so many really well spotted drives, you know, right at their opponents, and there we're seeing, you know, trying to go around Zubori when you really can't in paddle.
Yeah, we're starting to see the tide turn a little bit here, and I don't, you know, it's not the direction that Morgan and Sikora want it to be changing.
Cross court overhead, not getting to the screen.
What a get there by Allison Morgan.
Oh, the one-hander's out. Again.
Russell, I refuse to point it out again.
Dave, you have to.
No, I refuse. I think if you're out there watching and, you know, watching any of the matches, anytime you see the net team doing a lot of side-to-side movement or moving, it's brought on by themselves. You know, whether it's hitting a cross-court overhead that doesn't get to a screen or volleying cross-court, all of those things create movement at the net, which is not, it's not a benefit to be at the net team and be moving side to side so much.
Absolutely, and you and I say it all the time. The less we move at the net, the better off we are.
And it's not about being, you know, lazy or slow. It's just efficient. And why not just hit the ball to where you're already standing to play the next shot from? Unless, of course, you know, you can hit something really offensive and attacking or you can get a ball into a side screen.
Exactly. I hope all our members at Orange Lawn and Fiddler's Elbow are still tuning in and watching and hearing and seeing that even at the top of our game, same things. Great close there from Halbauer.
Yeah, she really anticipated that well. Got on top of the net and stuffed the volley there.
Oregon Sikora won the first set 6-4.
All right, so let's take a look at the match summary brought to you by Court Director. Points won, you're starting to see that turn a little bit to Halbauer and Zubori. Again, now break points are 5 each. Each team's broken serve 5 times. And if you look at it now, at one point, Halbauer and Zubori only held serve once, where now they've held 3 times in this set.
Yeah.
So if you notice, Russell, that was a little bit of a different shot from Sikora. Like that one, she hit it more towards the middle of the court, so that it didn't clip the side screen.
Exactly. A lot of the other ones, it's hitting that first or second panel towards the deuce side, and then it just sits up off that side screen too much from Halbauer. So, I like that adjustment there from Sikora. I don't know, Dave, what do you think? I would be a little careful serving out wide to Halbauer's forehand.
30-all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, Halbauer and Zubori both have explosive ground strokes, so there's not a lot of safe spots to play them. If anything, I would at least like to see Halbauer hitting that shot from the middle of the court and not from out wide, because then maybe Allison Morgan can cut it off. Or, all right, so here we go. Anna Zubori with a set point here. Another chicken wing volley.
We're going 3 sets.
All right, Russell, we'll be right back in just a moment after these messages right here on the APTA YouTube channel with live streaming by CSM Media and Streambox Labs with match statistics provided by Court Director.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Welcome back to the APTA Tour. I'm Dave Broderick here with Russell Bentheim at Hyde Park Golf and Country Club with this women's semifinal matchup between Ellie Halbauer and Anna Zubori, the number 1 seeds, taking on the number 4 seeds, Charlotte Sikora and Allison Morgan. We are deadlocked here at 1 set all going into the 3rd set. Russell, what are your thoughts on this match so far?
Yeah, great match so far. Like we talked about earlier, Halbauer Zubori definitely cleaned it up in that second set. A lot fewer errors, and we also saw Morgan Sikora give a few more errors that we didn't see from them in the first set. So I think especially for Morgan Sikora here, very important first couple games to find their rhythm again, still apply the pressure, but just especially in those first 7 to 9 shots of the point, no free points.
And Russell, let's take a look at the match summary here by court director. You're starting to see, now that we're into 2 sets, Halbauer and Zubori have actually taken over, winning 10 games to 8. And they're starting to your point that you'd mentioned, I think they just kind of tightened things up. Morgan Sikora raced out to a pretty decent lead in the first set, and then you saw Halbauer and Zubori, chipping away, getting back into the match a little bit, and now you see they're kind of really hitting their stride. And to your point, they're still winning points, but they're making a lot less mistakes. As I just jinxed.
Do I need to point out again, Dave, another cross-court overhead without getting to a screen?
Yeah, and again, I've never watched anyone practice, sliding or shuffling side to side, practicing volleys. Maybe they do it somewhere that I don't see it, but most people practice volleying standing still. So anytime you hit a shot that a ball might be coming back that you're going to have to volley, just hit it to where you're standing. Like, don't move. It just makes it way easier, I think.
I love the way you think.
We take it.
Love 40.
All right, 3 early break points here.
Again, and this is how kind of the match started off a little bit with Halbauer and Zubori making some unforced errors, and wow, there's not a whole lot you can do about that shot.
What a wonderful shot there from Morgan.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty amazing cross-court sort of touch shot by Allison Morgan.
I think it's very important for Morgan Sikora to really just apply a lot of scoreboard pressure, stay ahead as much as they can here. As we saw in that second set, as Halbauer Zubori got a little bit of lead and their confidence grew, their shots got better, they made fewer errors. So I think the more Morgan Sikora can stay ahead in this third set, that's obviously going to be a recipe for success.
Russell, just to remind everyone out there, at the top of your screen on the baseline, on the left-hand side in all black with the white hat is Allison Morgan, and her partner in the green top on the right side of your screen in the ad side of the court is Charlotte Sikora, and their opponents in the orange Cincinnati Bengals jersey is Anna Zubori, and her partner in all black with the white hat on the bottom right of your screen is Ellie Halbauer.
Great get there from Morgan. Yeah, really good close there from Zubori. Read that one really well, really early.
Yeah, and again, I just think it's a fine line between, looking to be aggressive and maybe making a bad decision. And again, that was another one that was more to the middle of the court, and it really forced Sikora to jump out of the way. So she was kind of late chasing that down.
Exactly. That's where I really like that overhead, where you can get someone to move out of the way and then have to run down even farther. And when you hit an overhead as hard as Halbauer does, sometimes you don't have a chance to even chase it down. Yeah, that's a tough one to drive off a roller from Sikora. Ooh.
30-40.
Is that a bonus point, Dave, for catching it?
I think, yeah. I mean, you should get a half a point. And again, like we talked about before, you know, there's a difference between being aggressive and, you know, making a bad decision or over-aggressive. And, you know, I think as you stated, we talked about it earlier in this match, you know, I think Halbauer and Zubori, they're controlling the tempo of this match. They're controlling the match. And, you know, the more mistakes that they make, the better off Morgan and Sikora are doing. You know, they're hanging around. They're not having to win as many points. Great get there by Allison Morgan.
She's going to want that one back.
And again, just to, you know, to finish up, like even in this third set, as this set goes on and on and on, if you're Halbauer and Zubori, you know, you don't want Morgan and Sikora hanging around in this set. That's a good overhead. Good hold there by Anna Zubori. Yeah. See how long she waited before she kind of pushed that down the middle?
But again, Dave, that entire series started shots ago.
Don't think I didn't see it. Don't think I didn't see it. Russell called me a stickler in my ways, but my theory does have some traction.
It does. And, you know, you and I talk about it all the time with our club members, and here we are watching, you know, the number 1 and number 4 seeds in Cincinnati, and it doesn't change that much, you know?
No.
Great get there from Halbauer.
Great get, partner. So good, so good.
15 low.
Listen.
30 low. And out.
Again, we're, you know, early stages of this third set, but, you know, I think Morgan and Sikora have to play longer points. Again, I know they want to look to be offensive and a little bit aggressive, but, you know, you can't put yourself at risk of making a lot of mistakes.
Games to 1, third set.
Russell 1 serving 2. I think this is a huge game.
Huge game.
For Morgan and Sikora.
Got to keep that scoreboard pressure here, and you know that last game was just a little too fast. You know, too many quick points, quick errors. So I would love to see a nice long point, and you know, it doesn't mean we can't go for shots and apply some pressure, but, you know, there's some overheads and some shots in the previous game that were just a little unnecessary.
Let's go.
Take it.
15 love.
Yeah.
Great serve. Come on.
30 love.
And I think one thing to point out is, you know, Halbauer and Zubori are making probably a few more unforced errors than they would really like to be making. However, I think even at this level, you know, they get away with it a little bit because they win a lot of points off of their drives and explosiveness as well. So, you know, I think they're in a mindset of, to a point, they're willing to take the good with the you know, the bad with the good.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you know, from one side with Morgan Sikora, they're not going to win a lot of points, right? It's going to be all in Halbauer Zubori's hands of making errors versus Halbauer and Zubori. If they make a few errors, you know, they're also going to win a few points on their own paddle. So.
Right.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
Make it over the net.
30 all.
My fault. Over the net. Here we go. Right at this point.
It's a great return from Halbauer again. Caught Morgan just jumping back a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Russell, it's been interesting because, and I have a theory behind what I'm about to say. Halbauer's return of serve has been hurting Zubori, Morgan and Sikora way more than Zubori's. And I feel because even though they're both hitting forehands, Zubori's hitting her forehand from the middle of the court. So she kind of has to return the ball back down the middle of the court, where Halbauer's hitting it more from the outside of the court, and she could return it to anywhere on the other side of the net that she wants.
Absolutely. That's, you know Halbauer's, and you said this before, you know Halbauer's going to rip that return, but, you know, we'd much rather if I'm facing Halbauer, I'd much rather her rip it from the middle of the court rather than out wide and have any option in the universe.
Right, and that's the thing. You're taking a player with great forehand and great backhand, and you're kind of making it easier for her.
Come on. Let's go. Right here.
15 all.
Come on.
How do you like?
Great return from Sikora.
Good eye. All right, good shot. Come on.
15, 30.
Right here.
Come on now. Stay with it. Got it.
Go. Come on. Great pace. Let's go.
Great drives there. And those are more of the drives we were seeing in that first set. Not trying to go around them, making them reach and take a little step or two to get to that ball. But, you know, in the second set, they went away from that, trying to make it look too good.
Add pressure.
Good to tight.
Great move. Great hands. Wow.
My fault.
30, 40. Go, 4 away.
Here we go. Right here.
Right here.
Another break point here for Morgan Sikora.
It just depends how she goes after hearts.
Russell, what do you think they were talking about? It was kind of a long conversation.
It was a long conversation.
All right, let's go.
I bet it wasn't about
Oregon
faulting.
Sikora.
No.
Halbauer Zubori lead 3 games to 2, third set.
They may have self-iced the server. As
All right,
we
I think
look
that was a huge game there for Morgan Sikora to stay close here.
We have some match statistics here from court director. Again, it's kind of tight. Service break points. A lot of breaks to serve here. The returners are dominating.
Love 15.
When you say, wow. No, when you say good shot to yourself. Hey, great shot. Right here.
And again, Russell, we're starting to get to the middle of this third set. And, again, I'm going to say it where, I think every time Halbauer and Zubori are up a little bit, it's way more important for Morgan and Sikora to kind of level it off than it is. I mean, obviously for Halbauer and Zubori to win this match at some point, they're going to have to create some separation. But, I think if you're Morgan and Sikora, when you're playing from behind, you've got to even things up.
Absolutely. Really great spot with that lob there. Right over Morgan's left shoulder.
It's 15-30, right?
15-30.
Great confirmation from our chair umpire, Mike Yachimsky. All right, 2 break points here.
Russell, I feel like Halbauer and Zubori are making a lot less mistakes than they were to start this match, but they're making just enough to keep Morgan and Sikora around.
Exactly. Like that last overhead. Didn't have to be that good. Got to be careful with that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been saying it most of this match. Had some pickup by Zubori.
Incredible pickup. Oh, wow.
Oh,
What a point.
Great point by all 4 players hanging in there.
Like we said earlier, you know, Halbauer's ripping that return regardless, but there we saw Morgan serve that down the tee. Return goes right at Sikora, no movement, and now they're controlling the point. Here we have game point to get to 3-all. Great speed on that roller.
Yeah, she saw Sikora move, and you saw that she changed the speed of that ball, and it kind of got stuck back there behind Charlotte Sikora.
Yeah, great disguise. She's hit so many of those really hard rollers that have been flying out, so great change of speed there.
You see, again, that's another really good serve by Allison Morgan, forcing Halbauer to hit that forehand return from the middle of the court, which eliminates any angles that she has. And
Exactly.
it allows the ball to travel at one of the net players, not away from them.
Exactly.
ATP.
Wow.
Little around the post action.
Halbauer, Zubori.
They're still
I gotta
playing to
say,
the crowd.
how many net courts have we seen so far this match? I think we've seen
Quite a few.
at least 15.
I think Morgan and Sikora thought that ball was going to go out.
You're the hometown crowd happy with that break from Halbauer Zubori. Cincinnati does a great job of, you know, getting a lot of people out there watching. Great support.
Russell, we should go and, you know, all these events are put on by amazing volunteers and people willing to, you know, put in many hours to make such great events for the tour and for all the players. So special thank you to Ron Bergotti, Chris McCarron, Jim Getke, Eric West, the host club, Hyde Park Country Club. Also, we want to mention all the surrounding clubs in the area for, you know, the use of any of their facilities. These events can't happen all in one place.
Another friendly tag, Dave. And again, that previous shot, I would like to see Morgan just let that ball go.
Right.
You know, Sikora's right there to cover for her, put up the lob, and get back in the baseline, stay in that point. Great push. Kept it so low.
That's been a super effective overhead for Zubori, hitting that low cut overhead down the middle of the court.
And then all of them, it's all starting with a nice overhead to the ad side, pulling Morgan away from the middle, really opening up that soft one through the middle.
Advantage Morgan Sikora. Game, Morgan Sikora. Halbauer Zubori lead 4 games to 3, third set.
So, Russell, that goes back to what I said last game, where, like, Halbauer and Zubori are just making enough mistakes to allow Morgan and Sikora to hang around. And,
Right.
you know, if Morgan and Sikora, you know, if they get a break here or a break there, or hit a good shot here, good shot there, like, they can flip this, you know, very quickly, you know, because they're hanging around. And like I said, you know, you look at the unforced errors in that game from Halbauer and Zubori, you know, that didn't look like the previous game where they broke serve and they were, you know, very stingy with giving away points, where that game
Right.
they gave away quite a few.
A little bit of confusion there.
Right here. Yep.
Yeah.
Go. You can do it.
Love
We
30.
see that all the time with Halbauer. The blitz in with the backhand roller. Such a great play.
Yeah, and it all starts with a good dipping return of serve, you know, that has, you know, she hits kind of a nice, hard, solid shot, gets below the level of the net, so she knows Sikora is going to be volleying up, so it allows her to move in.
A great backhand there from Halbauer.
You want regular?
Let's go. Yeah.
Game, Halbauer Zubori. They lead 5 games to 3.
Go get it.
It's a great aggressive game there from Halbauer.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of pressure from her that game, and let's see if we can play another clean game here.
Russell, if you're Halbauer Zubori, do you just give them the game and say, all right, we want you to try to serve it out?
That's one strategy.
I mean, the last two return games for Zubori and Halbauer have been
flawless.
you know, pretty impressive.
Good. I got it.
Yeah.
We're good. Go. You're good.
Wow.
15 low.
Dave, you think you're tracking that one down?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or calling it out on the baseline.
That's true.
But no,
Both
I
are
think,
great options.
I think what made that so successful, such a great shot there was, you know, that ball was so close to the back of the line that it hit low off of the back screen and just came flying out.
Yeah, and we talked, you know, the previous game when when Zubori had the great disguise on her roller going with the soft one. You know, Halbauer just hit 2 really nice soft rollers and then boom, pulls out the big hard flat roller.
You got it. You got it. Forward.
I'll tell you what, Russell, we normally see Anna Zubori on the right side of the screen when they're at the net. And, this is one of the rare times we've seen her over there on the left side. And I got to be honest, she's up until that one was a little bit loose, but she's kind of putting a clinic on how to hit overheads from that side of the court. If you noticed, she hit very few balls cross court. She was just willing to push that ball straight ahead.
That's exactly it.
She was never out of position. The points never got too fast. It wasn't hectic.
And if they get a drivable opportunity, it's either coming right at your paddle or right at Halbauer's paddle. And here we have two match points.
Yeah.
Halbauer Zubori.
There you go. See, I like that play. Just go straight ahead. Zubori has to drive the ball back at you.
Sure hear from Sikora.
Yeah, I don't know if I love this play, but all right. Well, good serve, getting it in. Allowed Sikora to get back on the baseline there.
Yo, all right.
You got it.
Yo. Yo.
Go.
Yo.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
There it is.
All right, so 6-3 in the third for Halbauer and Zubori. Russell, what do you think was the difference in that match?
Yeah, I think once we cut down some of the errors and from Halbauer Zubori from that first set, started playing a little more solid, better choices. A few more errors from Morgan Sikora that they weren't giving in that first set. But Morgan Sikora stayed in there. That third set, they didn't go away at all. They were right there till the end.
Right, and if we take a look at the match statistics here brought to you by Court Director, you can see that, in the end, Halbauer Zubori broke serve more times. They actually wound up winning more service games throughout the course of the match. So, you kind of see in the statistics that it did slightly tilt towards Halbauer and Zubori, allowing them to move on for the women's final tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Did you know I kept looking at the sign, and I was.
So, Russell, I want to thank you for joining us, and that's a wrap for this women's semifinal. Please stay tuned as there's men's semifinal action still coming your way tonight on the APTA YouTube channel.
Oh, you did it.
Thank you, Dave.
The business owners that I'm working with have entrusted Corient in this work because we're really focused on supporting them in their important endeavors. They're functioning every day in their zone of genius, and their expectation of us is we're doing the same. My name is Anna Diaz. I'm a partner and wealth advisor at Corient. When we think about the work we're doing for our clients, we think about first financial, absolutely. It is not uncommon that our very successful business owners and clients are making disjointed decisions. Our job is to provide a proactive strategy so the filter in which they make these decisions is informed. Second is the emotional load. Our clients often are asking themselves, what am I missing? Our job is to remove that mental load so they feel that their strategy is optimized, is simplified, and is executed cleanly. And the third is generational. Absolutely, there is technical design that goes into that, but it is also the thoughtful impact they want to have with what they've created.